Easy now. Papa got things making him
come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. I'ma have to cut you off, like right now. You see, I don't want to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they ain't finished change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and a color on your.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by The Athletic. Shout out to the company. My name is Michael Sean Dugar. I'm here with my co-host, Christopher Kidd. Make sure you follow us both up on the tweet machine. You guys know where to follow me at. I'm verified on there. Shout out to Elon Musk. Also, shout out to all of our YouTube subscribers, Seahawks Man-to-Man on YouTube. That's the number 2 man. All the subscribers who can see me right now see that I am on my second pair of glasses that I am wearing, to spite Chris. Who is vision challenged. This time we're going with the sunglasses because they look a lot cooler. And it helps because our next guest is coming to us from California, where it is not snowing like it is here in Seattle. To preview, or actually, my bad, I almost cut you off here. Chris, go ahead. You talk to him.
Nah, man, go ahead and cut me off. Nah, you can follow me on Twitter. It's your boy C-Kid, CKIDD206, and that, again, is CKid206.
All right, I will take the glasses off.
Well, those are fine, to be fair.
No, yeah, These are. I'll tell you where I got this after we do the guest intro. Seahawks-Rams coming up down in Los Angeles, SoFi Stadium, which become my favorite stadium to cover games from. Actually, to talk about the 3-8 Los Angeles Rams, we have our favorite Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast guest, Jourdan Rodrigue, covers the Rams for The Athletic. Jourdan, welcome back. How are you?
I am keeping my record alive. Matt Barrows, if you're listening, you don't have on me, all right?
Oh, you can say it. Go ahead. This is a unfiltered podcast. You don't know how many times Mike be dropping F-bombs, S-bombs, might be going crazy. So, Jourdan.
Matt Barrows, eat my dust.
Don't worry, Tashanka 75 times on the show last week. I loved it. It was fun. It was hilarious. But yeah, no, this is not a PG.
Tashawn's had some back and forth with Iggy Azalea, and so now you're really seeing he's being a little bit more vocal. So now you gotta watch out.
Hashtag get my guy Goat Reed a date with Iggy. That would be hilarious. Chris, before we start, I actually got these. Somebody who I guess DK has like a deal with Oakley, so they just been sending me glasses. Yeah, so I just got these randomly in the mail. These are nice. I'm gonna take these down to LA with me. I'm not gonna do the show with them because I can't see anything with glasses on. I don't know how people do that. I was hanging out with Tashawn on Saturday before the Raider game, and I had some sunglasses on wherever we was at. We was indoors, and I was like, "What the hell? I can't see shit."
Well, you're indoors, Mike. Of course not.
It just looked. I looked cool as hell, though. Let me tell you.
You can do sunglasses inside in LA. They don't think you're lame for doing that. They think you're famous if you do that. So.
Yes, I'll give it a shot. And when I come down to SoFi, I love covering games at SoFi. Now that I know where the exits and the entrances are, great.
You're good to go.
Not a well-marked stadium. Not a lot of signage.
Nope. I got lost getting out of there that first time in 2020. Lady told me to go to floor 6. I was like, "There's no way floor 6 is where my car is. There's no way." I just didn't believe her. Go all the way down to floor 1. I'm in the basement. I'm like, damn, maybe she was onto something. But then I went up to floor 2. I'm like, nah, she tripping. It's a new stadium. Go up there. Damn, I'm still in the basement. Right. Maybe floor 6 is it. Boom, floor 6. I'm right there because the stadium's built into the ground. I don't know if I've told that story before, but that was my first SoFi. I was like, this stadium sucks. Fuck, what's the parking lot on floor 6? Didn't make sense. Sorry, that was my little. We got a lot in here before we even start talking about the Rams.
It's all ready, good. Chris? Let's do this. First of all, like Mike said, pre-show, off wax. Who gets the win? We're not going to do it at the end of the show. We have now transitioned that to the beginning of the show. So, Jourdan, who do you think gets the win? Right now, the Seahawks are favored by 8 points. So, yeah, that's very interesting. We know there's a lot of injuries going on. We'll get into that too. But, Jourdan, who do you have getting the dub and give us a score?
I do think the Seahawks will win this game. The Rams are obviously on a 5-game losing streak, the worst of the Sean McVay era. They're going to be without most of their star players, and They're pretty decimated and preparing to start either their 11th offensive line in 12 games or their 12th offensive line in 12 games. We'll see how the week goes.
Wow.
And the Seahawks are playing well. I know a little bit of a dip recently, but overall this season they've been fun to watch, and they've really put it together in ways that I think all present company on this podcast even didn't expect, including myself, which but I also didn't expect the Rams to implode this hard. I think it's going to be the Rams defense is playing well, so I think it'll be something like 21-10. I don't really know what this defense looks like without Aaron Donald. He hasn't missed a game due to injury in his entire career. He's played in 83 consecutive games, even through cracked rib cartilage and wearing like some sort of Teflon armor and an icy hot patch around his entire torso. So I don't really know what this defense looks like without him. So that's why I say that, like, it could totally implode. I don't know, but I think the Rams defense has been a bright spot this season. So 21-10 Seahawks.
All right. I also will pick the Seahawks. No surprise there. I think I'm 3 for 3 on that. I told Mike after one of the games they proved me wrong. I said, I'm done betting against these boys. I'm going to pick them the rest of the season. I don't care. Picking them. So I, too, will pick the Seahawks to get the win. I think, so now it gets interesting. We'll get into Aaron Donald and his status, but let's say Aaron Donald does not play. I see the Seahawks winning maybe 27-13. Mike?
That's fair.
Yeah, it's on me. Yeah, the O-line count is insane. That's just I wish this is where I go. We should have like one of them graphics department. We can just put all the different lineups that they've had. You usually just don't see that. That's pretty insane. I'll keep it short. I'll pick the Seahawks. I think it's gonna be close though. I just don't believe in a Pete Carroll team blowing out a Sean McVay team. I gotta see that first because I've seen the inverse way too much with dudes named John Wolford starting. So yeah, I need to see that to believe that. 17-13, I'd say. So all my gamblers out there,
plus 8 on the Rams. All right.
Plus. Did they cover last week?
They covered. They were 15.5-point dogs, and they covered.
Ooh,
that's a moral victory, right?
But it still was. Actually, they kept the defense kept them in the game. It was 13-3 at halftime, and the Chiefs, they had a 72% touchdown rate in the red zone. The Rams held them to field goals and had an interception. So it's pretty impressive despite the complete garbage fire that is this season.
Do we think Aaron Donald's going to play?
I don't think he'll play. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'd be surprised. I mean, I think he would want to play, and I think that if the Rams had, I don't know the severity of his injury yet. He played the entire game on Sunday. So, I mean, you kind of are like, all right, well, should he have gone out? And could he have gone out if it were less of a close game through most of it? This is one of those things where a lot of this type of, when you see a team imploding like this, injuries that people would try to maybe get through, or the team, they would push through and the team would let them push through. This time of year, especially if there's a playoff contention available, like the cracked and torn rib cartilage, for example, like he pushed through and played through that. But being a high ankle sprain, I'm not super optimistic he'll go this weekend. And also the Rams are 3-8, so not super optimistic about seeing him even the rest of the season, depending on what the test results show. He's getting some more testing today, Tuesday, when we're recording this. So probably figure that out by tomorrow.
Dang.
That's a shame. I do.
I know.
I do enjoy watching Aaron Donald, destroy.
Who doesn't? Besides, certain former quarterbacks.
Oh, you can say his name, Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson, Geno Smith. I mean, the Aaron Donald has just done such bad things to the Seahawks. Like it was a play against him that broke Russ's finger. And changed the course of the franchise there in a lot of ways. So it does suck. Not seeing him play if he does not.
I do have a question. I do have a question for you guys. I was thinking about this a lot. If Aaron Donald had not broken Russell Wilson's finger, and we didn't see Geno, in actual live game action, the coaches didn't see Geno in actual live game action. Do you think that it would have been a different or more chaotic decision this offseason in terms of whether or not, because I had heard he'd done some awesome stuff behind the scenes, so I don't doubt that at all. But in terms of like live game action, do you think that Aaron Donald is in part responsible for Geno Smith and the Geno sounds?
Absolutely. Yes.
I love it.
It's not even just that particular game. You can even take it further back when they had Brandon Staley and they played the Rams 3 times in what was that, 9 weeks? I think including the preseason, maybe 3 times in 10 weeks or something like that. In the 2020 season, that essentially kills the let Russ cook thing. Like just Aaron Donald and the Rams just basically destroyed that, which deteriorated the relationship between Pete and Russ. So then you get Russ's first being pissed that offseason. Then you go to the finger thing. There they are playing the Rams again. Boom, he's out again. And then it just makes it even worse. Then Russ rushes back. Looks like shit against the Packers. And so then it's everything. The Rams just break the Seahawks in a lot of ways. They've got McVay's gotten coordinators up here fired. Like Brian Schottenheimer didn't survive that season. When they blew out the Seahawks in 2017, like 42-7 in Seattle, neither coordinator survived that season after that. So yeah, the Rams, one way or the other, tell the Seahawks what they want to know about themselves.
But here's what I love.
This will be the case too.
It's wild. It's wild. And what I love about what the Seahawks have done this year is they've brought in elements of the thing that which they most despise. Right. So like, and they didn't just do it last year, but like, the OC and then the offensive scheme and then now the defense, which you guys were all over that big defensive shift really for the first time in Pete Carroll's career, bringing in, some of that Fangio stuff and a guy from the Fangio tree. And I just think that that's the reason why the Rams went to the Super Bowl in part was because they brought in things that had killed them in the past in terms of that Fangio defense. And then, so a lot of those types of schematic changes on that side, instead of just trying to go beat them again and beat that again and again, instead they brought it in and weaponized it for themselves. And you're seeing Seattle kind of do that right now. Anyway, I'm going galaxy brain now, but I just think it's fascinating. You're like, you got to sacrifice a lot of pride to an ego to do something like that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're Pete Carroll.
Hires too. The hires are very important because a lot of these coaches have their trees and their philosophies that they learned from. And if they want to teach something new, it's very hard to, because when you're trying to teach something new for the defense, for example, when you're trying to teach this too high, Fangio, two gapping stuff up front, if you don't know everything about it intimately, it's going to be hard to teach it to the players. You can teach them the basics of it and the fundamentals, two gapping, 1.5 gap, all that stuff, not too complicated, match coverages. The problem is it'll be week 8 and the other teams will have figured out your defense. They're going to start attacking you and adjusting. And if you don't know intimately your own defense, you can't teach your guys to have answers to the new problems. So that's why you see people hire people from a McVay tree or a Shanahan tree or a Bill Walsh, even further back, because those people know the stuff intimately. So when week 8-9 comes around, the other teams are like, oh, you're doing a bunch of play action dagger concepts. Well, now we know how to stop that. Well, then if you know it intimately, you have the answers to the problems, and it just becomes big old, I look like Antonio Brown, but you're just a big old, the people on Spotify have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, it looks like it just turns into a chess match. So yes, that's why you get if you can't beat them, hire them. In the NFL, that is not an accident. I've actually been told that directly. That's why I had that direct example.
The interesting thing too is you'll hear people from that initial Fangio staff or that initial Staley Rams staff, and like they've said this to me before, where it's like, what the Xerox copies look like. I was like, wow, that's some shade right there. and so it's basically saying like, the coaches who aren't going to have the next counterpunch because they only know a certain extent of what the playbook was. And I think you're seeing that in some places that pluck directly out of that 2020 Rams staff on the defensive side, where you're seeing they've been figured out in certain ways and they're unsure really what the next evolution of this is. And I think that's why it was a good idea for Sean to hire Raheem Morris, because Raheem Morris, he immersed himself in this defense that had in itself also borrowed concepts from a much, much earlier iteration of what it eventually became at the college level. Tampa 2 and NFL, and then you go into cover 6 and some of that match zone and Saban stuff in college, and it comes back up and Fangio and then, all that stuff. And borrowing that, but also understanding how it's going to move forward and how it should move forward and evolve and kind of grow. And I think, you're never going to get the exact same thing that you had, but you at least have to figure out what the counter punches are going to be. And you have to have more counter punches as teams figure out how to play you. And that's one thing about this defense is it lends itself really well to evolving in that way, especially if you can cater to your personnel and while still remaining intact within the philosophy. But you can also really see when you run out of answers. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of running out of answers, I guess how do I? What? There's so much.
Speaking of running out of answers, the Rams are terrible. Is what you're about to say.
I don't. Yeah. The record says they're really bad, but if you look deeper into it, they do have a stellar defense that's holding teams to not blowing them out. They're losing games because the offense is struggling. And I guess maybe I should just form the questions. What happened to the offense? What happened to the explosive offense that we were able to see in the playoffs last year that got them an opportunity to win the Super Bowl? What happened with that? And I'll end it with, why didn't they even bring back OBJ? You would think a guy that, if he doesn't tear his ACL, I forget what the injury actually happened, but did he tear his ACL in that Super Bowl?
Yes. Yeah.
So if he doesn't tear his ACL, he might end up being the MVP of that game. And the Rams are like, yeah, nope, we're not going to bring him back. So I'm curious to see what happened with this team, because looking at their schedule, yeah, it was a little rocky, but they had opportunities to win games. So what do you think pinpoint this season just going off the way it has? And then also I would like to add, why not just bring back OBJ? Because having him right now, I think might help.
Yeah. So the problem is you can't pinpoint it because it's so many different things. It's just more like floodgates. Like it's just been crazy. So it's a lot of truths. It's a lot of truths at the same time, right? So first and foremost, they've been through an absolute catastrophe on their offensive line. I've never seen anything like this in my life. Historically, I don't think any team has had a season like this where they've gone through an actual 4 deep at almost every single position on their offensive line. It's 4 left tackles, 4 left guards, 3 or 4 centers, depending on some of the in-game stuff that's happened, 5 right guards, and holding it down on the right side is old Rob Havenstein, who has been in every game this year as the only position that has not changed along that offensive line. And we're at the point where when I interview Rob Havenstein in the locker room, he'll literally ask if I can knock on wood as I'm talking to him so that I don't jinx him when I'm asking about how decimated the line is. That's where we're at. The personnel meetings on Mondays for the Rams have become less about pro scouting updates and more about, okay, who's got a lineman? It's been crazy. And so that's one of those things that they didn't expect. They had invested in Joe Noteboom at left tackle. I think in hindsight, you could maybe argue that was not the right investment for them to make. It was the natural one. They had drafted him to take over eventually for Andrew Whitworth, but through the course of all these injuries, they actually found that Alaric Jackson maybe can be their future at left tackle. He's out, got injured. So then they really came across these crazy good defenses that just kicked their doors down right away. And importantly, also we're playing the Rams in ways that they did not predict and did not expect. When the Rams finished last season, the way that teams were covering them when they had Odell Beckham Jr. and Cooper Kupp was, you saw, especially the Super Bowl and into the postseason, you saw some bracketing around Cooper, and then you saw some dare Matthew Stafford to get it to the X or ISO OBJ. The ways that they were scheming him loose, they were doing a lot of Shanahan McVay crosser system stuff, rhythm timing stuff, but they were also doing a lot of new stuff out of those drop back concepts that Matthew Stafford really likes, the empty sets, those types of things. And OBJ was thriving in those. And that was how they thought teams were going to start playing them moving forward, knowing the season that Cooper had last year, and also understanding that, this was the direction their passing game had moved, and they had no run game. At the end of the suit, they still have no run game. So they knew that they're going to be working through some problems in that regard. And so they thought, okay, they could have kept Robert Woods, which I think in hindsight, you want a guy like that around through a catastrophe of a season like this, just a leadership perspective. And he could have filled in when Cooper got hurt and all of that. But in the moment when they're making this decision, they were already of the understanding that Odell wasn't going to be back until at least December in terms of actually on field active. They knew that their team doctor did his surgery. So they knew exactly what his timeline was, exactly what the recovery was going to look like. And it was a pretty serious ACL sort of almost reconstruction, because what he has sort of alluded to on social media was that there were already some issues from a previous repair that, they also, kind of helped lead the non-contact, and the turf doesn't help, obviously. And then, it's a non-contact, really terrible thing. They knew what his timeline was going to be. And there's always that mutual understanding that they were going to try to work something out with him. And, it would be well into the year when they did. And at the same time, they understood that he wanted to go to a contender, and they were super respected that. So they're like, you take your time, recover. And then here's what our offer is going to be. It's my understanding of it's pretty low in the front end, very incentive heavy. And then with an opportunity on the back end to lock in some multi-year, a little bit more structurally sound, traditional stuff that maybe would be reflective of how he came out of the injury and how he started working back into the offense. So that's my understanding. And it sounds to me like that's what other teams are kind of looking at right now, as he's on his series of visits that he's going through the next couple of weeks. So it would have been super helpful to have him, but he was never going to contribute to this team anyway until, mid-December, maybe, if at all, through the season, based on the timeline that were aware of for the injury. So then that leads them to, okay, so in their minds, they're like, well, we're not going to play the same offense that we were playing because we've already moved into this Matthew Stafford era of drop back and spreading everything out horizontally and making sure that they're an empty all the time, and the things that Matthew Stafford really likes to do that sort of ran counter to what Sean did with Jared Goff. And so in that way, that left Robert Woods as a little bit of the odd man out, because that was more of a reversion to what they had done before. And you even saw when Robert Woods was on a Matthew Stafford team, he wasn't getting the ball. So then they think, okay, when they lose out on Von Miller, which was huge in terms of affecting their season overall, when they lose out on Von Miller, then they're like, where do we pivot? So they pivot to Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford specifically push for Allen Robinson, thinking, okay, well, here's an X receiver, right? Here's an X receiver who can high point and contested catch, be a red zone threat. They struggled in the red zone all season. Here's a guy who we know he's a great leader. We know that, he's got a resume as being a one, but he's the type of guy who would really be professional about, working with Cooper Kupp in terms of that rep split. And you saw this vision for Allen through the spring and through the summer that was outstanding. Like it was awesome. He was moving around everywhere. They were using him on all kinds of different concepts and layered routes and like doing all kinds of versatile stuff. And he looked incredible. And then they get into the season and they have no protection. First of all, the pressure is insane. Teams are also not playing them the way that they thought they would be playing them. What they're doing instead is basically like rushing for and fire zoning Matthew Stafford all day, every day. And just like picking at him in that way, because also Van Jefferson is hurt. So teams know that they can't truly throw the ball deep because Van Jefferson's their deep ball guy. Tutu Atwell's wasn't really even seeing the field at the time. And so they know that they can just sit in that shell and just fire zone away as much as they want. And it just makes life, and between that and the pressure that teams were getting, now that makes life really hard, because you're basically going to your first read of the progression every single time. Not only is Cooper Kupp always your first read, and it took them way too long to make Allen their first read on any of these concepts. And not only is Cooper your first read pretty much every single time, he's also got like a crazy amount of option routes. So even if he's not the first read, he can become the first read depending on what the pressure looks like. The pressure looked bad. So it was all these issues that was compounding. And then they started losing guys left and right to injury. And then Matthew Stafford goes in the concussion protocol, and Sean McVay won't clarify whether he has a concussion. And then he leaves the protocol, and then he gets a neck injury as he's taken his 63rd hit in a season, which is a record high in the Sean McVay offense. Then Cooper Kupp goes down because John Wolford throws him a hospital ball. And then, you're sitting there and you're looking around and you're like, this is like that meme of the dog sitting in the house that's on fire. It's like, anyway, so it's not just one thing, but it's absolutely been insane. And anything that could go right for the Rams in 2021, despite, all kinds of chaos that they had anyway. Anything that could go right for them in that postseason did go right for them. Anything that could go wrong for them this entire year so far has gone wrong for them.
It's literally the domino effect.
Yeah.
Just
Chris,
The universe resetting itself back to neutral is what's
Thanos
really
got all his stones and he's making things right.
it's like that one movie where what's the movie where dude like sells his soul to the devil?
There's
Wow.
like probably I think like a million of those.
You're talking about Ghost Rider.
Yeah,
God.
yeah, like that's what
Is that Nicolas Cage?
Nicolas Cage.
Oh,
yeah,
brother.
like his superpower is his head turns into a flame. That's a stupid superpower. But yeah, he makes that deal with the devil, and then like it's what the Rams are. The Rams made that deal to get what was that safety that dropped that pass in the NFC Championship to Jaquiski Tart?
Yep.
Yeah.
Whatever they sold to get him to drop that. There you go. And now they are paying the price. They're almost like the 2020 49ers. I think.
Oh, yeah, they were
Well,
decimated
think
by
about
injuries
that
too.
too. I mean, like that's part of it too. The injury thing. That was the longest season the 49ers had played in a while. The Rams are coming off in a store, and the 2019, I mean, was the longest 49ers season. I believe that was that year, right? That was their Super Bowl run year. Am I remembering that right? So
I think they went 13-3 that year.
They're decimated after a run like that, a postseason run like that, and then if I'm remembering the year right, and then the Rams are decimated injury wise after a run, the one that they made, historically long season. I think there's just like they've got to be looking, and they are looking right now very closely at the sports science of it all in terms of the workload on the body and balancing that to getting guys prepared and conditioned correctly, but also I mean, I know this sounds unscientific, but like burnout is extremely real. And I think that there's got to be a more medical way to deal with the mental burnout, the mental medical part of what it was that they experienced and pushed through last year. And then coming back around in the shortest offseason in NFL history and trying to do it all over again.
I do feel bad for Allen Robinson because I feel like every year there's a guy, it's usually a couple, that like get all of the angst from fantasy football fans for whatever reason.
I know.
It's usually like a couple. Usually it's running backs, because they got hurt or something, or maybe in some years it's Lamar Jackson. And this year it is very clearly Allen Robinson and Kyle Pitts. Like people have clearly invested in them. With DJ Moore for a little bit in Carolina as well, but it's definitely Kyle and Allen right now. People drafted them, including myself, very high, and were very upset for however many weeks it was. And it seems like just Matt Stafford and Allen Robinson just had beef.
Yeah.
Could not throw that guy the ball, it felt like, for a little bit. I do feel bad for him because their player DMs get real nasty over fantasy football. People just think they can say whatever shit they want to them because they didn't score for your little funky team. And it's so I see why the players are like, dude, fuck you. I get that. Because people hop in their DM, you didn't score, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dog, my team just lost by 20. In real life, I don't give a damn about your little fantasy team.
Yeah, and I think it drove me crazy too. I mean, he was a real pro about it, but like it drove me crazy because you're sitting there and you're looking. It's not all one thing. Like were there times where maybe he could have been more open? Were there concepts that maybe he could have executed more cleanly? Were there catches that maybe he could have come down with? Of course, that's everything. That's football always. But overall, in a big picture sense, like the Rams pushed hard. He was on the precipice to signing with another team. And Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford called him on the phone and were like, here's our vision for you. Come join the Los Angeles Rams. And they talked to him for hours. And he was just like, okay. Like this sounds awesome. I will be there. And like, say less. I would love to join your Super Bowl defending team. And like, then the vision, and then they start operating that vision all through, like, again, conceptually all through training camp. And then you see what actually happens in the regular season. And it doesn't look anything like it conceptually. And then also, when you have pressure like that and you're like, I get it because Cooper Kupp is you're getting like, crazy amounts of EPA added every time Cooper Kupp touches the ball. So I get it. You're going to spam him as much as you can if you're struggling everywhere else. But at the same time, you're still loading Allen Robinson up on the backside of all these passing progressions. You're not putting him in high probability situations where he could really help. And it just was like, I just felt like I was beating my head against a wall at a certain point. I was like, I mean, I get it. This is so much harder than I even know. But like, this seems like there are simpler answers to this question here right now, guys. Like,
yeah, so let's go, because they're not going to play Matt Stafford. It does not sound like, which is unfortunate because he's another guy I like watching. He's very volatile, more volatile than I think people give him credit for. He's got some Josh Allen in him, and has always, and it just makes for fun games. It does. One way or the other. He might just blink and throw the ball to Quandre Diggs as if they're teammates again. So in the game he got hurt, as this transition to Bryce Perkins, I told you guys this off camera. I was watching on my phone the numbers for the Saints game versus the Rams, and I see Bryce Perkins running the ball. Like, he ran for like 20, he had like a 23-yard run or something like that. I'm like, what the hell? Sean McVay really can do anything. He got some white guy named Bryce Perkins out here probably just running all through the Saints. And then after the game, I think I watched the highlights or something. I just Googled the guy. And I was like, hold on, Bryce is black. What do you know? Did not know they had a black third-string quarterback. Good for Sean. But that leads us an opportunity to ask a question we have quite literally never asked on this show. I can guarantee that in 5 years of doing it. Jourdan, is this Bryce Perkins guy good?
So you guys have to give the context too of what this question is, because for those who have followed, you guys have so many awesome listeners, and everyone who is a regular listener knows every single year during the Goff era, Michael Sean and Chris Kidd, every single time the question, Jourdan, we ask you this every time and we still don't know the answer to it. So we're going to ask you again. Is Jared Goff good? And so I am delighted that we've carried on this tradition. I think, yes, I think Bryce Perkins is good. I think that there's obviously some limitations to what they can even run right now. Again, they're on a 4 deep at most of their offensive line positions at this moment. A seventh round rookie is starting at left tackle right now. So you're not in a good situation. And so there's a lot of limitations to even the language that you can build into the offense because of what your line is not able to do. That said, he's got a spark. He's got something. The guys in the locker room, they love him. He's very calm. He's been through a lot. He broke his neck in college, and transferred from my beloved Arizona State, unfortunately, transferred to Virginia, set some passing records there, set some offensive production records there. And he just has stayed the course. He was someone who Shane Waldron worked with, actually. And he was someone who has been there for 3 years, an undrafted free agent who has drawn a lot of buzz. They've had to roster him essentially because other teams have been that interested in him based on his development. And he's worked really hard behind the scenes, and guys all see it, and they see sort of the juice that he brings and the little spark of energy, because it's not just that he is very collected and very cool and just really gives it everything he has every single play, but it's also that he can move. This dude, it's not just that he can run with the football. He is a very, very physical runner, very fast, and someone who I think if you get him in open space, you're going to have a hard time. And he's even, that 20-yard run, it's like a 23-yard run right up the ribs of the Saints defense. Like, no concern for any of it. Just knife through butter situation. And I think that there's something there. Guys, even at the end of last game, when they had to convert a couple of really tough late downs, a third down and a 4th and 2, to keep their touchdown drive alive at the end of the third quarter, guys were telling me like they felt the Chiefs backing off them a little bit because they were so worried that he was just going to boot it out and then he'd be gone. And so I think that that brings a little something there. And the Rams have never had a quarterback who can really do this and has started in multiple games for them and has really been able to layer this in as a direct element of what they can do on offense. And I think it's interesting. I think it's something that they need to be pushing for right now. I think that they should be going further in on this. You make him your starter. In my opinion, you shut Matthew Stafford down for the year. Again, he's in the concussion protocol, and he left the game against New Orleans because he felt numbness in his legs after a hit. Suffered a neck injury, and I'm like, bro, shut it down for the year, right? Like, that's not. And at the same time, you have this opportunity with a quarterback who hasn't taken a lot of live reps to see what he can do in terms of maybe eventually becoming your long-term backup, but also what the future of this team looks like in a league where the traditionalists, kind of stand in the pocket, even though Matthew can wiggle around a little bit. And even though he's got the arm angles and he can do the misdirection throws and the no look passes to create space, those guys are getting phased out of this league. And so it's a good opportunity for the Rams to really see what their future might look like in terms of a different style of quarterback than they've had under Sean McVay.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to joke that Sean's got to make that call on shutting Matthew down before for Kelly staff. Is that her name? Kelly? Or she come into Sean's office and do it herself. Yeah.
Sean already got hit in the face this last week.
Oh, that was so bad.
On the sideline. I don't think he wants to invite any more conflict.
Yeah, man. The wives don't play when it comes to the concussions with the especially the husbands that have got paid already. It's like, hey, you see what's going on in Tampa. Wives ain't really playing around when it comes to this. They'll tell you shut your ass down and change the locks. So, throw that in there. Go ahead, Chris.
So you mentioned no Cup, no Allen Robinson. So you look at this offense. How do they get points on the board? Who do they go to? You said Bryce Perkins is pretty good at running. How does that work going up against the Seahawks defense that has been struggling recently? So how do you think they're going to put up points with no star weapons right now?
Well, you ask a good question. How are they going to put points on the board? They're not.
They will.
They're not putting points on the board. No, and I don't want to diminish the effort that these guys are putting in either, because there's a lot of young guys who are working really hard right now. But oh my God, it's been bad the whole year. The Rams offense, even with a healthy Matthew Stafford, this is how bad it's been, guys. I'm going to start. Here's the hands are coming out here. So this is how bad it's been this whole year. So the Rams, through most of the season, the Rams defense has held opponents to an average of 16.2 points per game. Okay. The Rams offense was averaging, before Matthew Stafford went out with a concussion, the Rams offense was averaging 17.8 points per game. That's almost the worst scoring offense in the league and the sixth best in terms of limiting points defense. And then the stats are even skewed. If you go to like ESPN, the stats are skewed because they're freaking accounting for pick sixes, punt blocks, return for touchdowns, offensive turnovers. And so it makes the defense look a little bit more skewed than it actually is. The defense, in terms of defensive scoring and limiting scoring, the defense was only allowing 16.2 points per game, which was tied for sixth best in the league. Is right up there with like the Bills, some really, really solid defenses. And so you're looking at this and the offense has been historically bad all season. They have gone 3-and-out again prior to Matthew Stafford leaving, because I think now we're looking at like an entire new stat set at this point in the season. Wow. Prior to Matthew Stafford leaving, they went 3-and-out at a 40% rate. 40%, guys, 3-and-out, not even 4-and-out, not even 5-and-out, 3-and-out at a 40% rate. And like they were doing it also at a 40%. It's the highest ever under Sean McVay. And they were also doing it at a 38.2%, around 40% rate, directly after the defense forced a 3-and-out. So like your defense forces a 3-and-out, which they were doing in the top 10 of the league through most of the season, right? And then 40% of the time on the other side, the offense immediately goes 3-and-out.
Damn.
Like that's how bad this season has been offensively. So to your point, how are they going to put points on the board? So special teams has forced some turnovers. They converted and there's some guys, like I said, there's some young guys who work really hard. Van Jefferson is getting his legs under him. He's out for most of the season. He and Bryce Perkins have a really good connection. So I would assume this is a big Van Jefferson game. Tutu Atwell, I think more out of necessity because they haven't played him at all this year because they like to go tempo and they can't keep subbing him in and out because they hadn't been able to play him on rundowns or in some of the close to the stack concepts. So you might see more of him. You'll see more Brandon Powell, and they're going to need to take the ball away on defense. They're going to need to try to score on defense. Again, really hard when your pass rush is missing Aaron Donald. And they're also going to need to like steal some downs, as they say, on special teams by some of that trickeration that they did, and then try to do as much as they can. Their run game I've been intrigued by it because they cut Darrell Henderson. He had sort of been phased into their running back 3, and their running back 3 has to play special teams. He does not, so kind of became the odd man out. Kyren Williams and Cam Akers, they complement each other really well, but in New Orleans ran the ball really well. Last week, not so much. But that's one of those things that's a work in progress that I think you might see come along a little bit more. It's my understanding the Seattle run defense maybe isn't kind of where it needs to be right now. So That's probably something that I would see is like them try to go pretty ground heavy early on in this game. But actually punching it into the end, their kicker's good. I mean, I don't know. Like it's kind of one of those things where I frankly have no idea how they're going to get into the end zone. But like I said, I think you saw some flashes from Bryce Perkins last game and moving the ball, and so if they can just pick away at it and stay consistent with the things that they do well, and not turn the ball over, which Bryce did twice in the fourth quarter, then I think you could actually like build a little something here over the next few games.
You must be reading our Seahawks man-to-man sheet that has all of our questions on there, because the next question was tricks up his sleeve for Sean McVay, and you're like, oh, special teams might have to do something here and there. Then you go into the run game, but in week 11, they actually ran really well. They had 148 yards between Kyren, how you say his name, Mr. Williams? Kyren Williams, your quarterback Bryce Perkins, and I thought, okay, they did it once. So you kind of hinted at it that they will have to. Do you think that'll be something that they do with even their O-line issues? Because back-to-back weeks now, the Seahawks have given up career highs to running backs. I know they had a bye week, but they did it with the Buccaneers. But Rashad White, he ran for a career high. I think it was 110 yards for him. And then they have a bye week comeback, face the Oakland Raiders. Not Oakland, my goodness. I'm always going to get tripped up by that. The Las Vegas Raiders and Josh Jacobs.
That was crazy.
He turned out, he just reincarnated Bo Jackson and was out there doing whatever he wanted, ran for 229 yards, 303 yards off the line of scrimmage. So he was doing his thing. Are you predicting that the Rams are going to have a successful run game come Sunday? Is that what I'm hearing, Jordan?
I just haven't seen them have a successful run game but twice this season. So it's kind of like what Mike was saying earlier. Is like, I got to see it before I actually predict it. Okay. I think this is setting up for them to try to stick with it. A lot of the criticism I think that's been rightfully directed at this group is when they've been successful running the ball, they kind of move away from it. And in part because they do understand that the highest production and the most productive element of an offense overall is going to be the passing game. However, it doesn't mean that you just move completely away from the run game. So I think that's where you're going to see them maybe mess around a little bit with some of and then they also have started expanding the types of runs that they use. It was very limited early in the season with Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers. You saw it just felt very part of it's the offensive line stuff. Like, again, you're learning a new language and you just showed up in the building this week. So if you can have some continuity, at least on the interior of your offensive line, which they may be able to do entering this week, then I think you can start to expand a little bit of what you do with your concepts that you run. And Sean McVay's been wanting to get a good 2-back system going. That's why they drafted Kyren. They thought he was going to be a really good complement to Cam Akers at a certain point. They need to get that going. And so I think that this provides them a good opportunity. It's a defensive structure that they're very familiar with too. So I think that it's a good opportunity for them. Will they stick with it? Will they be successful? I have no idea. So it's hard to predict anything with this team right now, frankly.
Yeah, you just knock on wood, hopefully no one gets hurt. That's just, especially on that SoFi turf. I do like covering games at SoFi, but it can be brutal.
A hard, fast turf is what they say. Yeah,
it's rough. We joked about me wearing sunglasses indoors, and when I do that, I do get assumes that I'm famous, and I'm like, man, or that I'm in the NFL. I was like, man, that's just. Do you guys know how big NFL players are? And then I forget that there's Tutu Atwell, who is 5'9" and $165, and
he's probably not 165.
Yeah,
he's not. I don't know. They list that on the roster. I'm like, we have eyes, guys. Like, teams always do this. It's not just the Rams. Teams everywhere always do this. Like, they'll list it. It'll be like such a generous height listing sometimes, and I'm like, do they not think? Do people not think we have eyes? Like, what?
5'9", 165. I'm like, hold on. Hey, there you go. It's like the Spider-Man meme. Like, hold on. I know a 5'9", 165. If he is 165, it just give me some hope there. You know what? You never know, because Chris gets mistaken for the soccer player, and then I'll get mistaken for someone in some famous realm. It's like, I can't be no NFL player. It's like, never mind. There's Tutu. So hold it down, Tutu. I'm rooting for. What's his real name? Is his real name Tutu?
No, but I don't remember what his full name
We're
is.
gonna wiki.
No.
We're gonna wiki.
Also, you guys, I can't say I've never been mistaken for an NFL player, so
Arterial.
I can't really emphasize. I do get emails sometimes addressed to me thinking that I'm a man, but I don't ever get mistaken for an NFL player, so I don't know that pain.
What's his name, Chris?
Shatarius? It sounds like Shatarius.
Okay, there you go. We're just going. No wonder he goes by Tutu.
Does that sound right, Jordan? Did I even?
Yeah, no, that's correct. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask something here that's not really about either side of the ball. I'm curious about, as I'm hearing all these bad things with the team. So Aaron Donald's hurt. Got high ankle sprain. That it's at the point in the year. It's like, he probably shouldn't play through that. Sean McVay's got to be stressed every week going through trying to build an offense around guys he just met the other day. And then Cooper Kupp's out, and then Matt Stafford may or may not be concussed. How much longer are we going to see Sean McVay, Aaron, and Matthew on the same payroll here? Because this seems, after last year, where the two of those three flirted with retirement, this seems like the cue, God knocking on the door and be like, hey, this might be time. What do you think? Did all three of these guys run it back in 2023?
I think what I'm working through right now is, first of all, I don't think that anybody really knows definitively the answer to that question as things currently stand right now. And while that might seem scary, if Rams fans are listening to this, it might sound scary. I think it's actually fine to not know the answer to that right now. I do know that the Rams will work through all sorts of different, choose your own adventures, right? With this, depending on if 1 goes, 2 goes, 3 goes, I'll go, I'll stay, whatever. However, I will say one thing that I think is kind of, at some point, Sean McVay is going to take a break, right?
Right.
It's also true that he and Matthew Stafford are very much linked to each other. This is a collaborative situation where they very much enjoy working together. And it's brought them both some new energy that they really wanted to experience. And so I think that those two are very much tied. So like, if this is hypothetical, nobody, I don't want to see this on like Bleacher Report or anything like that. This is a hypothetical. Like if Sean decides that this upcoming year is the one in which he wants to take a break, I don't see Matthew also sticking around. Now, he would owe the team a ton of money if he were to retire, because all these guys just got extensions.
Right.
So that might factor into it, might not. He's already made a load of money in his life. So, and I don't know that that's like ever going to be more important to the family than player health. But if Sean goes, Matthew goes. If Matthew goes, I think it's more likely that Sean goes. I don't know if either of them will go, because frankly, what I'm also, or Aaron, and frankly, what I'm sort of looking at here, this like less talked about element, I think everyone realizes, all these guys realize, it is so rare to be able to go out on your own terms as a football player. Mm-hmm. Very few people actually get to do that. The ones who do should be celebrated. But it's also, there's a nuance too, where if you can still go out on terms of, I did everything I could and had a losing season, you could still go out on those terms. Now, if you're injured, you have no control over the terms of your, of your decision to leave. You have no control over that. And that to me is maybe a little bit more of a sour taste than otherwise. Like, oh man, we suck the next year, and it's pretty clear that we're not going to be good. I don't think that this team stays at this level, by the way. And I also don't think that guys who, especially, who have battled through some stuff through their entire careers and proudly done so, I don't think that they want it necessarily on their legacy that they left because of an injury. I think that they would rather have it said that they left because it was time for them to leave, which that's what a losing season minus a season-ending injury does. So I think that's a little bit of a factor. And then I also think one thing is like the sourness of this season. It's almost like if you're Sean and, he does care about what people think about him. And there is like this sense that he has never really dealt with like real adversity, right? Or like sort of this narrative that because he's been on teams that have won, and he's been obviously a huge part of that. But even when the Rams like missed the playoffs, they still put together like 7-8 wins, like or 9 wins. Like it was never like this. So it's almost like if you win the Super Bowl and then the first year that you're bad, that's when you walk away. It's like kind of I don't know that you live that down like as a human, right? Especially you're the coach, you're not injured. And that's being sensitive obviously to the mental health part of this and the idea of burnout and those types of concepts. At some point he will take a break. That's true. But it's also the Rams, I think, are of the camp that they would believe it'd be more of a pause, kind of like Sean Payton is doing, right. Taking a break, but not done coaching. And at that point, you're kind of getting in this gray area where if you know at some point you will take a break, like at what point do you want, what sort of like underline do you want on that rundown of your legacy? Like the first time you lost, you were under 500 after winning, and then you just won the Super Bowl the first time you're under 500, and then that's when you walk away. That's sort of like now you're gonna have to explain that to people and kind of face the guys in the locker room who stuck around, and like what I mean. It's really, there's a human element to this. It's really complicated. I think that's part of the reason why nobody really knows what's going to happen, because I think I would totally understand people wanting to hang it up after something like this, but I think I would also understand that this is such an outlier season for the Rams, who I believe still are very much in their window outside of this entire catastrophe of injuries. And I also don't buy into the sort of think pieces and all the little narratives. I mean, I've seen everything where it's like, oh, they're done. That's it. They have no capital. They have nothing. These guys always are working through a way to swing back, essentially. And I don't believe that this is just it for their window, quote unquote. I think that if they do decide to bring everything back in 2023, it's just the hair on the back of my neck is up, guys. It's like they're going to do some crazy shit. If they do get all of these guys back for 2023, they're going to do some crazy shit in terms of the moves that they'll make and some of the things that they will try, because they know that this is their time to win while they have the greatest player on the planet on their roster, their quarterback, at least for now, the head coach, who they do know will take a break at some point, and what version of him when he comes back, you don't know. And so they know it's now, and they know it has to be now. So if they get it back, I think they're going to do some insane stuff.
Yeah, I'm predicting what Sean's going to do is very tough. Everyone can basically only just imagine what they would do. And what is Sean, 36?
I think he just turned 37.
Just
36. No, he's 36. Yeah.
36, just got married, Super Bowl. Boy, I'd be on somewhere where the beaches are white, the water's blue, Super Bowl ring on there. Have my agent say, hey man, call me when Amazon wants to cut a check for them Thursday night games. And I'll be in the studio. That's me at 36. I do think I'm with you though. Next year, I think we compared them to the 2020 49ers earlier. 2021 49ers run the NFC title game. It's like you just can't get worse injury luck the next year. It just, the universe hates no team that bad.
Yeah.
Like the deal with the devil isn't that. Yeah,
he gets bored after a while. He's like, they've suffered enough. I'll just
Let me go back to just destroying the Lions of the Browns. Something like that. Like the football gods rotate. They'll get you one season, but then they'll just go back to bothering the Jets and just pluck their cute quarterback luck or something like that. It's just so bad. Like right now, they're just on Mike Tomlin's ass. They said, boy, you ain't have a lose record before? Oh, watch this, Mike.
Watch this.
Watch this. Godspeed. Here's Mitch Trubisky. We talk a little bit about the offense. We'll end this talking about the defense for the Rams, because that is the thing that's going well. That is like basically when you look up stats for the Rams, you just figure, okay, here's all the bad stats. They're like 32nd in this, 30th in that. And then you go look up that same thing for the defense, and they're just like first, second. Like, let me see. I was looking this up this morning. Number 1 in rush defensive EPA, second best red zone defense, number 1 goal line defense, lowest rate of explosive plays allowed. Like, this is all some very good. This is elite stuff that they are doing. They're basically like the Broncos. The Broncos defense.
They are the Broncos. This is very similar, actually. What's happening?
Yeah, just a terrible offense, and then they're just one play away from some big defensive lineman screaming at the quarterback on the sideline.
Ejiro Evero, by the way, defensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos, was on the ground floor of Wade Phillips, did some Vic Fangio stuff and some Brandon Staley stuff. So, by the way, we're talking about Xerox copies. He is not one of them. He is the real freaking deal.
Somebody needs to hire that dude.
Yeah.
He's got. I'm always impressed by the defenses who put up those numbers when the offense is crap, because that's very hard. To do. So that's a question I'll pose to you. How is the defense doing this, getting just next to no support from their offense?
They sort of, when we talk about like deal with the devil, like their bargain that they made was to fully commit to capping the explosives, because they understood this year that even if it meant they were going to play some like kind of infuriating looking at times coverages in terms of some of the cushion that they've had and that prevent of those explosive plays, the number one way to at least give your offense that is struggling so bad a shot to even do something is to make sure it's not too lopsided on the other side. And one explosive play, particularly an explosive pass play, triples the scoring rate on a drive in which the explosive pass play has occurred. So they're like, okay, if we can limit that part of it, and fully commit to that, fully buy in. And this is a compliment to Raheem Morris, getting his guys to buy in. That takes a lot of discipline to play like that. And especially when the ethos of this defense is a very aggressive match zone, but you're going to be in risk reward situations sometimes if you're pattern matching like that. And so getting them to commit to that fully is been what I think you've seen a lot of people who don't fully understand what the strategy is. Like, you've seen a lot of people complaining about it or questioning it, but it's really what has helped them at least give their offense a chance, and the offense has totally let them down. And so that's part of it. If their offense was scoring points, you'd see the real full iteration of what this defense is and what it can be. But in the meantime, they're stopping the run. Like, it's really interesting. I was going through, I'm working on a piece for this week about Bobby Wagner, and the defenses that are running conceptually this scheme, none of them are defending the run above number 13 in the league in DVOA and run defense DVOA, and the Rams are up in the top 5. Mm-hmm. And it's like, they've figured it out. And Bobby's a huge part of that, by the way. That's why, I bring it up, is like, they've figured out there's only one way to beat this team. And when I talk about getting them to buy in and commit to capping the explosives, that could totally make these games even more lopsided than they have been. Like, they've set the table for their offense in almost every single game this season. There are a couple outliers. There always are. But in almost every single game this season, they have set the table for their offense and basically teed it up for them. And the offense has responded, like I said before, going 3 and out at 40% rate directly after a stop. And so, like, there's only one way to beat this defense, and it is a quarterback on the other side who is asked to do almost an impossible thing for a quarterback, and that is stay so disciplined the entire game, not make any mistakes, and check the ball down every single throw. And it sounds like it would be easy for a quarterback to do that. It is not. Mm-hmm. It takes a crazy amount of discipline to be able to stick to that. So it's like you wake up in the morning and you write a Post-it note on your mirror that says, check down or discipline. And it's like quick pass, quick pass, quick pass, quick pass. You write little notes to yourself all over the place. Your coordinators are screaming it in your ear every single time, because it is so hard to stay in that tiny little box as a quarterback through an entire game. And quarterbacks who do it really more effectively than others are quarterbacks with really nothing to lose. Andy Dalton types, Colt McCoy, backups, guys who are like who almost prefer those types of things. Jimmy Garoppolo, who I think has actually played well this year, but he's someone who has thrived in this type of trying to beat this defense in this type of way. So that's the only way you can beat this team. You cannot run the ball on them. Again, I don't know what it looks like minus Aaron Donald, and they're also without A'Shaun Robinson, by the way, who is one of their best run stuffing DTs.
Yeah, tough.
So this is all caveat. Like, I don't know what it looks like from now on, but previously you could not run you could not run the ball on these guys. You could not. You just couldn't. You could do all kinds of crazy shit. And you've seen every team in the NFL running now against the Rams. All of these 49ers weird contact point moving runs, at the toss plays, that Zorro that everyone loves. Like, you've seen now every team in the league try these things on the Rams. You cannot run the ball against the Los Angeles Rams. Again, caveat, don't know now, but you couldn't, right? So it's like there, and you can't pass explosively against them either. And so there's only one way to beat this team, and that is the way that they sort of committed to playing their defense with absolute extreme strictness in those other two phases, understanding that that was the only way left, that teams were going to try to beat them because it was the only way left to scheme against this group. And understanding that if you accepted that, and if you did say, yes, I'm going to do this and make that bargain, then you are setting the table for your offense to at least try to do something on the other side. You're making the grounds as stable as possible for them on the other side, and they've been letting them down. So you kind of see there where some of this disconnect is coming from with this team.
Well, you mentioned him, and the Seahawks pretty much were like, yeah, we appreciate all the things you did for this defense, but we're cool. We're good. We got young guys that we want to use, want to be faster. But I was like, cool, I'll sign with the enemy. I'll sign with the Rams. I'm sure this is not what he expected, but injuries are a part of the game. And unfortunately, the injury bug is running rampant down with the Rams. How has he handled this season despite everything going on?
I don't know that I've really met anyone like Bobby in my entire life. I text Mike about this a lot. Like, not only is it like someone who has multiple PhDs in football, who's just like, you just get to learn from and be around all the time. But also, like, I don't think I've ever met somebody as professional as he is. And like, he has fun with it, and he has a good time with teammates and all this stuff. But like, this is not what he signed up for in the least. And he has not let that show one time. The entire time he's in the locker room post game, he sits there and talks to media every single time. I know it's like, I'm not one of those people that's always like, does the player talk to media or not? Like, I don't really care about that. Like, that's not really my style. But it is noticeable that he stands there and takes you through what happened. And he tries to keep guys together, and he just like quietly moves about his business, and is really someone that Sean McVay has said he's leaning on during especially this time that they're going through right now. And it's not just that, it's also that he's having like one of the best seasons I can remember him having. It's just getting lost in the crap dumpster fire that is this season. He's like grading out as like one of the best inside linebackers every week in Pro Football Focus. He is one of the main reasons why they can stop the run so well. The way that he calls this defense, he keeps everyone disciplined. Like, the crazy thing to me is like, it would be so easy for this group to say, I'm so sick of what this offense is doing or not doing in this case, and I'm just going to play out of scheme. I'm going to play my game. I'm going to make plays on the ball, even if it means that it leads to crazy explosives on the other side or touchdowns or whatever, instead of maintaining the integrity of that shell and that post-snap rotation that they do. And they could do that. They would probably be fair in doing that. Like, I would understand if but Bobby has kept everyone together in that group in terms of making sure that everything is clearly communicated, that the tone is set, that everything is known. And it's been really, really remarkable, like, getting to know him a little bit. He's kind of, he's a pretty private person, but getting to know him a little bit. I was super fortunate to write an in-depth feature on him earlier this year that I'll share out again this week. It's pinned to the top of my Twitter profile in case Seahawks fans hadn't seen it and are interested in reading it. Like, just probably one of the most remarkable people I've ever met in my entire life. Not to gas him up too much. We got to keep, yeah.
Hold on. I'm going to get the headline of that real fast because that was really good. I'm going to share that out. So the headline for that is Bobby Wagner is back in Los Angeles, but he never really left it behind. That's very good. That's very, very, very good. Once you get to talking about Bobby and his mom, you got to interview him without crying, and good luck.
I was a wreck after that.
Yeah.
I'll share this. I'll share this now. Like, So I interviewed him. Geez, it would have been late August, early September, before the season started. The piece ran early in the season, and I'm glad it did, because you know how fans are. Like, you could put out a really nice feature and it's really impactful and important, but if the team is bad, it's like people are kind of have checked out. So I'm glad that it went up early, because it was really important. It was important that people know who he is and what he's about. So we do this interview. He's really gracious with his time. And very trusting, to the point where, like, we'd talked through the course of training camp or whatever, but nothing that in depth, and very, very trusting and open and gracious with his time. And very impactful stuff that you're talking about life and death, and how you carry people with you, and how people remain alive through you. And even after you've lost someone you love, and what you do with that as you carry them. And I walked to my car after the interview. I left all my stuff in the Rams facilities, and I walked to my car, and I put the seat all the way down, and I just sat there and cried. Like, I was a wreck. And when you do something like that and you write something like that, I think it sounds really probably overly cheesy, and I don't care. I'm just going to say it anyway. Like, writing a piece like that makes you really grateful to be alive in the moment that you're in, because you get to have an experience where you talk through something extraordinary with somebody. And it's something I will never forget in my entire life.
Yeah, Bobby's a special cat. I will ask that if you can relay a message to him for me on behalf of the Seahawks media. The game is still on whenever he's done being scared. Just you can let him know that for us, because we're up here. We're ready.
Hang on. Before you say us, Jourdan, then after you say that, say Chris also said he respects your game and would love to compete against you on the court. Let's throw that in there.
What kind of unity is this? You undercutting my trash talk?
No, I'm just. That's Mike's commentary. Chris understands Bobby is an elite NFL player. His basketball skills probably good, maybe college level. I respect it. We are going to score, but I don't think we'll beat you. So with that being said, just add that tidbit. Chris also respects it and is looking forward to the competition.
I'm just saying, like, I hear a lot of talk, including from Bobby, about his game. Never seen it, never seen it. So, I mean, he's doing crazy shit, like jumping over the long snapper and blocking a punt. I know you guys seen that a bunch when he was in Seattle. Yep. And he's doing a clean, like, high knees jump and a double bounce to get his hand in there and all of that. And I was like, yeah, that's good. But when asking him about it, the conversation immediately goes right into basketball, basketball player move, and it's stuff about, like, it's like a Lakers practice. And I'm like, okay. Now I don't know, because not only have I not heard and not seen you play myself, so I don't know. Also, I haven't really heard teammates talking about whether he's a good player or not. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of think they're like, oh yeah, so much respect for Bobby Wagner. Basketball just somehow never comes up, so I don't really know what that says about his actual game there.
I take it. Don't relay that. Because you can't relay what I said and then relay what Chris. You just undercut my trash. What kind of trash talk is that? Hey man, it's on, but it's okay. One of us doesn't think we're gonna even win. What? Nah, man, you can't. You can't go in with the mindset that we're gonna lose. Then we'll.
He's already playing psychological mind games with you guys. This is how he wins. This is how he does it. He does this like every week. He'll get up there. He'll talk about some run concept or something that the other team does or whatever. And that their staff is all listening to all those press conferences. And that they know that he knows what they're going to do before they do it. That's his game. It's insane. He's already doing that to you guys right here, right now on this podcast.
To be fair, he said we wouldn't score. Okay, I'm thinking we will score points. So technically, I'm with Mike. I don't think we'll win, but we'll get some points. We might lose 11-5, but you know what? Bobby said we wouldn't score a point. We got 5 of them things. I think that's okay. I know Mike is a competitor, and he's like, nah. We winning. I respect that. There's guys like DK that I don't know how we're going to get a rebound against him. They had offensive linemen like Charles Cross, who apparently is going to play. Those are 2 big guys that I'm not going to try to get a rebound from. So let's just we'll get back to football here, but I just wanted to get that in there. That way,
You don't need to get a rebound if the ball goes through the net.
Thank you.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. You know what? Maybe we should pick up Jourdan. What do you say, Mike?
Yes.
Moral support.
No, to play, not to be a cheerleader, not a moral cheerleader. You got to be on the court.
Anybody who believes in us, I'm with. I have physically scored a point on Bobby before in a game. Like, I'm very confident in our ability to score. I'm just throwing that out there. So I'll try and relate. I don't know. I get the message today because Chris is going to have us out here sounding soft. This is insane. This is terrible trash talk.
I'm sorry.
Ridiculous. We got one last thing. We're talking about the other star defensive player who's actually going to play. In this game, in Jalen Ramsey, who's also been like a Seahawks killer in the past. Though the numbers don't suggest that he's the same Jalen this year. The explosives are definitely being allowed, at least statistically. And then if you just watch the highlights, you see stuff like Chris Olave just running right by him in that Saints game. So Jourdan, what are you seeing? Is stats being deceptive, or is highlights not telling the whole story, or is Jalen not the usual Jalen in 2022 this year?
So I think, like I said, I think it's like a couple of things at the same time. Like, on the one hand, the explosive passing plays, especially a couple of them on key downs. That Olave one was not good. The Kelsey one last week, I mean, that was a crazy route too that Kelsey ran. But like, again, you expect Jalen to be who we've traditionally known him to be and contest that one a little bit closer, and then also be a little bit maybe more I don't want to say even disciplined, because I feel like I'm like, I could not do what these guys do. So you expect the after the catch stuff to be contested a little more closely as well. And I think that's part of it. But what also is happening too is he's being asked to do a lot of different things for them, including against the run. He actually, I would say, he's probably one of their better run defenders on the team. And he's being asked to do a lot of things close to the line of scrimmage and the star and all of that. So when you see a higher volume of yards and stuff, you're also understanding that he's in a higher volume position right now where he's getting a lot more action. You're going to make some plays. You're going to give up some plays. I would say that a couple of those explosives, though, have been very uncharacteristic, particularly ones where it's clear he's got the opportunity to be the guy. And in the past, it was sort of like a no-brainer, a no question. And this year, there have been some moments where I've kind of wondered, is he fully healthy? Is he feeling okay? That kind of a thing. So we'll see how he finishes out the year. He's been really outspoken as well. I think about the lack of reciprocation from the offensive side this year. He was pretty outspoken after, let's see, one of the losses. There's been a lot. Yeah. One of them earlier this year, he was pretty outspoken about it. The offense held the team that they played to, I don't know, I'm blanking on the team. They held the team, the defense held the team to 13 points, and the Rams still couldn't win. So
that's the Bucs game.
The Bucs game. Yeah. The Bucs game. And then they shouldn't have been on the field at the end. You know what I mean? So it's been frustrating too. So I imagine it's been what I would call this defense right now, Jalen included. I wouldn't call them tired. I wouldn't call them gassed. I wouldn't call them, worn out or anything. I would call them weary, because that also implies the mentality of what they've kind of had to deal with this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen probably like, man, I flew all the way from Jacksonville for this shit. This is just the 2017 Jags. That offense was okay, but yeah, in some of the latter years with Jalen in Jacksonville, that was bad.
Yeah,
that was really, 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 and he was killing it. That defense was so good. The 2017 Jags defense.
I know, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah, there's so many of those guys who are like still in the league, still starting.
Calais Campbell.
Yeah,
love that man. He was my first NFL interview.
Oh, look at that.
He was a kid on Monday Night Football. I keep calling him kid. Monday Night Football just yesterday. He was just killing it. He was on that defense too. Yannick,
yeah.
Yannick Ngakoue, yeah.
Killing it on it. Like, there's just a bunch of those guys who are just still very good on that. I think Miles Jack played in the game last night too. He was on that. I think he was on the defense. Can't remember, but
yeah, he was.
Yeah, they had just good guys, on that defense, and then there were just Blake Bortles, man. That is a shame. Yeah, I think hopefully Bryce Perkins has a good game, man.
It'd be crazy if he has a good game and the Seahawks end up losing or something. That'd be really wild.
Yeah. Remember I said
about it. We've all talked about Sean McVay. Like, he's not about to wave his white flag. He's he's definitely coming in there, with a mindset. We do these things. I'm willing to put down 1.5 times. So 1.5 over or under that they run a fake punt or something. A trick play. I have that. Yeah. Like I really think he's going to go in he doesn't want to lose this game. I know he told the players, I read your recent story talking to the players about, hey, go out there and have fun. Like, how many of you envisioned this opportunity? I get the whole team is just depleted. So at this point, yeah, go out there and have fun. But still
don't know what your name is, but go out there and have fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you were talking about Rob Havens. Is it Stein?
Havenstein, yeah.
Havenstein. It's like, yeah, he's probably he can't even go over the plays. He's getting to know the guy next to him.
Yeah.
Like that's
and they've been think about this too. They've been on their silent count for most of the season. So you're not only are you going through offensive linemen like, popcorn, but you're also it's been crazy, dude. Like I've never seen anything like this before. And I think it's interesting. The thing that I'll say too was the Rams had a really good game plan against Kansas City. They knew that Patrick Mahomes was going to chew up some yards. I think you just have to accept that when you're against that Chiefs attack, especially as they are entering their final form, as they prepare to make this like Super Bowl run. And they knew he was going to chew up a bunch of yards. What they wanted to do instead was, again, like I said, limit the explosives on the defensive side and then flush him through what they were doing on the interior and the way they were moving Aaron around. Flush him into the flats, but stay sticky once you're out of your shell, quote unquote, in the zone. Stay sticky at the end of those routes and flush Mahomes side to side. Bobby, for all the talk about like speed, I guess, was like one of the reasons. Like Bobby was moving sideline to sideline pretty well with Mahomes, especially in the red area. And they knew that if they could keep him out of the end zone, that would be the difference maker of the game. And then the other side, the offense, for all the missing players and people who, are shaking hands for the first time in the huddle, like it was really interesting because in the beginning of the game, part of the reason why it was so close was not just because of what the defense did, but also because they were playing keep away from Patrick Mahomes. They were running the ball, even though it wasn't super effective. They were running the ball a lot, doing a lot of design runs to convert downs with Bryce Perkins, which meant that they could sustain drives actually a little bit better than they have been doing on offense all year. Which kept the time of possession pretty even though the defense was on the field quite a bit. And that was the bargain that they made essentially because they knew that they were going to chew up some yards, but you just keep them out of the end zone. And then they played keep away on the other side. And I thought that was really interesting. That's creative. That's like, to me, that's like a coaching staff and a group of young guys that do not want to quit, that are not laying down for this season, because you go in there and you're 15.5-point dogs. Like, like I would not be thrilled to be playing in that game, but it just showed that, like, to me, that they weren't just going to lay down. So I'll be interested to see what happens this week, because that was, I think, one of their smartest game plans of the year. Ironically, it happened when there was nothing left to lose, essentially. And then that's where you hear that timeless football phrase, like the genius of desperation, because that's really what it was born of right there.
Well, it'll be a interesting game to say the least. Jourdan, we want to thank you for taking the time out and joining us for another episode of Seahawks Man to Man, talking about the Rams, as they're pretty much decimated, but they're going to keep fighting. And it should be a definitely interesting game. Mike, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
This is really like the 2020 49ers, who I think had a player get injured get a concussion during a walkthrough. So,
I remember that.
Yeah, Barrows. I remember writing about that. I said that has to be a typo. What did he hit? It's a walk.
Him?
Yeah. The Rams actually had that happen this year with one of their linemen.
Oh man,
it was a lineman for the. So maybe it's just a lineman thing. Yeah, it was a lineman for the Niners as well. So this is the worst of the worst. Once you guys getting concussed in walkthroughs, you're screwed. That's it though. Thank you, Jourdan, for joining us. Thank you so much. Keep thugging it out through the season there.
Thanks, guys.
Is there anything you would like to add, Jourdan, before we let you go? Anything that you have coming up? Your podcast? What you got?
So I do co-host the 11 Personnel podcast. Still an apt name, although who knows how long that will be the popular passing formation in the league at this point. I've always got stuff I'm working on. I think at this point, it's pretty much inevitable that there's going to be a deep dive on the Rams season and what went wrong. I would say keep your eyes peeled for longer term look at that. It's going to be very interesting digging into some of the behind the scenes stuff of that. Also always have thoughts and and feelings and whatnot, and sharing all those things. That Bobby Wagner piece I'm excited about. It's kind of about how timeless he's been against, and you can really see it the way that he's defending the run, because like you could dress it up any way you want, and he's just still getting to the ball. And it's really it's been interesting to watch all season. So yeah, other than that though, it's great seeing you guys. This is, like I said, eat shit, Matt Barrows. No, I'm just kidding. By the way, I love Matt Barrows. I just don't want him to get my streak. I am the longest running host, and I will stay that way.
There we go. All right.
Well, there it is.
Thank
Another
you,
episode of Seahawks Man to Man. We thank you again, Jourdan. We will catch you guys after the game. Have a safe week. See you.